Returning tonight then again to Pilgrim's Progress. After taking a week off last week, we come back to our examination of this allegory written by Bunyan as a description from his perspective of what it means to live the Christian life, what it means to walk the path unto the celestial city, to go from our place of being dead in our trespasses and sins to that place where we see Christ face to face. This is the journey. So this is Bunyan's allegory of that journey. Now, again, let me just repeat something that should be obvious. No allegory is perfect. This isn't scripture. This isn't the word of God. It's not inspired. So it's one man's observations of the Christian life, and remember, it's also written in a time frame, his time frame, right? It does have some universal value, obviously, one of the most popular books in the English language, but nonetheless, it's imperfect. Okay, so it's describing the Christian life in a good sense, I think, and it is fair to pick at the details a bit, but I think the point that he's making is well made. We spent 3 weeks prior to our break last week looking at a group of men headed up by Mr. Byends, who are men who believed that it was justifiable to use religion as a means of gaining the things of the world. Again, men on this so-called Christian journey who hold to the philosophy that it's okay to call oneself a Christian and even participate in various Christian practices if that should give you a, dare I say, financial advantage in the world, or whatever other kind of advantage that you might gain. Christian and Hopeful, as you know, have responded to these men. We looked at that in the last section we looked at, that he responded to their position and basically said that their position is utterly illogical and unchristian. All right? Which leads us then to the next section, which is entitled by the name of the man who is at the center of this particular section. You'll see that Bunyan has a tendency to do that very regularly, putting the title over the section as related to a particular individual in it. And this section, as you can see on page 36 of your booklet, is named Demas. Now there's a number of ways of pronouncing that. Demas, Demas, Demas. No one really knows what the exact pronunciation of the word is, to be honest with you, because remember, it's a transliteration from Greek to English. So whatever it was in Greek would be interesting. If you spoke Greek, what this name would be. So I'm just going to use Demas. That's the one that I have settled on over the years, and so that's what I'm going to stick with. If you want to use a different translation, that's fine. There are some, by the way, who think that this word Demas is actually a shortened version of the name Demetrius, but there's no proof of that anywhere. Now, before we get into the text, it would seem reasonable at this point to pause and consider why Bunyan uses this particular name. Demas actually has an interesting reputation. He is a biblical character with an interesting reputation. You may recall, and it may say, when I say the word Demas, you may be thinking, I've heard that name recently, haven't I? And the answer is you have. You heard it at the end of Colossians, when Paul was making his final sets of greetings from the people there in Rome that were with him, and Demas is included. In Colossians chapter 4 and verse 14, Paul writes, Luke, the beloved physician, greets you, as does Demas. So this man by the name of Demas is there with the apostle in that place. And it would seem to me, the way that Paul writes that Demas is in a good relationship with Paul at this point. That would appear to be the case, given the fact that he's sending greetings from this man back to Colossae, putting him alongside of men like Luke, who we know was faithful. So it would seem that in this particular context, Paul treats Demas as a man who is faithful to the gospel. He's there with the apostle. And although Paul doesn't tell us what Demas's role was in the ministry of the Apostle Paul, we might assume that there was probably more to Demas than just being a guy hanging around. More than likely, he's in some way involved in some sense in Paul's ministry. Seems logical. I mean, after all, why would Paul send a greeting from a man that's just kind of hanging around? There's something about this individual that strikes Paul enough to be able to actually write his name and send greetings from him to Colossae. Okay. So we see him here with Paul in his imprisonment while he's in Rome. Fast forward to later in Paul's ministry, and you go to 2 Timothy chapter 4, and you'll notice that's the one reference in the midst of the section. You see it about halfway down. 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 10, where the apostle, now having been freed from his imprisonment in Rome, and sets out to continue his ministry. We know that he went to the Isle of Crete, put Titus there, and now he's writing to Timothy from someplace. Many have suggested he was in Ephesus when he wrote these words. But he writes to Timothy, and he writes to him in chapter 4 of that book, 2 Timothy chapter 4. And he says in verse 10, "For Demas, in love with this present world, has deserted me and gone to Thessalonica." So the positive report of Demas to Colossae in Colossians is contrasted with a pejorative look at Demas now in this verse. A man who was faithful to Paul in his ministry has now, Paul reports, abandoned him because, specifically, he is in love with this present world. And that's the reason Paul gives for his departure. Just as an aside, I would have you just look down one half sentence further in verse 11 when Paul says, "Luke alone is with me." Notice the parallel of what you see in Colossians 4. Luke, the beloved physician, greets you, as does Demas. Now you see Demas having abandoned him, but Luke being the only one with him in this place. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that was purposeful. That is the individual that Bunyan paints a section of his allegory around. He uses that individual. Now you will notice he's only mentioned in those two places. We know nothing else about him. He's probably Greek based on his name, but other than that, we know nothing else about him. And the bottom line is that at one point he's faithful to Paul and to the gospel, and in the next minute we find him abandoning Paul and theoretically abandoning the gospel to chase the things of the world. He is, as I pointed out in the preaching in Colossians that I did, he is an interesting contrast to John Mark. John Mark also was with Paul in his ministry and abandoned him, but came back and was restored and useful and mentioned again in Colossae as being with him and a faithful son. And so I think this particular individual, this man by the name of Demas, carries this reputation then of being a picture of someone who has abandoned the faith. And the question is why? And so it's around that why that Bunyan writes this section. Okay? And with that history then, with that background, here we go. The section begins with these words. "Then Christian and hopeful outwent them again." Okay, outwent who? Well, they outran, they out-traveled the Mr. Byans and his friends. Remember, we saw in the previous section that they had revisiting with them. Christian gave his apologetic against Mr. Hold the World's position. And then they went ahead and said, okay, we're done with you, we're leaving. So they outran them again. They outwent them again and went or continued on the path. They continued to walk till they came at a delicate plain. We would probably write that as to a delicate plain. They came to a place that was fine, a nice place. Okay? A delicate plain would be a place called ease. Very next words, ease. It's a place of comfort and ease. The problems of life have eased up, is the idea of this. It's a place along the path where the comforts of life or the troubles of life have eased up. And it says where they went with much contentment. Right? So again, Bunyan wants us not to think of the Christian life as being completely and totally oppressive. All right, it's not as though the Christian walk in faithfulness to Christ is always beset by trouble. Now, Bunyan is clear that there's a lot of trouble along the path, right? That is kind of the point of the book, to point out that, yes, you are going to discover many, many trials and tribulations and troubles along the way as you attempt to be faithful to Christ. But every once in a while, he will paint in something into the picture to try to say, okay, let me be clear. I'm not trying to say that the Christian life is one complete set of suffering from end to end and there's never any ease. So he writes in some ease here. So they come to a time, hopeful and Christian, come to a place where it's good. It's the difficulties have eased up. Mr. Byans and his friends are in the rearview mirror. And so we can kind of forget about them and we can have some moments of ease. We can have some moments of less pain, less trouble, okay? But that plain was but narrow, so they were quickly got over it. All right, so Bunyan's a realist. He says, yes, there will come times of ease, but make no mistake about it, they're not going to be that long lasting. You're going to run into something at some point. Temptations are going to crop up, troubles are going to crop up, life is going to crop up again, okay? So the little plane of ease, the little delicate place, the little nice place where we wind up is short-lived. I would just insert a commentary, if I might, at this point, which is that the Christian church today in much of the West wants you to believe that the primary position, the primary state of life is to be one of ease. Bunyan doesn't paint it that way. Bunyan says, yes, you will have times of ease in life, but it's not going to be the norm. It's going to be the exception for those who are truly following after Christ, walking the path, okay? Now, it's this that leads Bunyan to where he wants to go, okay? So they come into this little plain. Now, at the further side of that plain, okay, so as they come out of that plain and they come to their first obstacle, they come to a little hill called Lucre. Now, those of you who are familiar with the King James Version of the Bible know this word, right? And what's the adjective that's always put in front of it? Filthy lucre, right? Filthy lucre, okay. There's some probably young are going, what? Never heard of that. Okay, it's in the King James. Filthy lucre, the idea of money or wealth in the general sense is the idea of lucre. That which you make that becomes valuable to you. We get the word lucrative from the same root. Excuse me. It's lucre, it's money. Now, the Bible doesn't make money itself evil, okay? It's the love of money that's evil. Money itself is just a thing. It's like this chair, it's a thing. But we can use anything in a way that's either righteous or evil. Now, there are many things that are immoral in and of themselves, okay? There are many things that men create that are evil. Okay, we think of idols, for example, all right? So there are many things that men create that are evil, but there are many, many things in the material world that are just amoral. Notice the A on the front. They don't have a morality in themselves. They're morally neutral. It depends on how you use them, okay? So this is a little hill called Lucre, but the idea behind the word, and I think the reason why Bunyan uses it, is because he wants to use it in a negative sense, okay? So he's using it pejoratively. He's using the word in the sense of this is not going to be a good hill, all right? This is going to be a dangerous place, and that's why he's using this. And now he's associating with money. So Bunyan is moving into here a discussion of the reality of money or material possessions and wealth in relationship to what it means to be a believer. Okay, that's what this section's about. And that fits, as you remember, with our discussion of Demas because he was in love with the world. And in that particular use of the word, it is likely that Paul is referring to the word is cosmos there. We use it sometimes to mean, the planet we live on or the universe we live in, but it can also mean the thinking patterns of this world, or it can mean the things of this world that are physical in nature, which become sinful in men by the way it's used. World in that case. He's in love with the world. So it's not that he's in love with the dirt under his feet. He's in love with what the world has to offer him as the things of this world become valuable to him. And more important than obviously, right, than staying with Paul and remaining in the faith and continuing with him. Okay, so that's where Bunyan is going, this little hill called Lucre. And you will notice that he then adds a frame to it, and that is, he says, in that hill, a silver mine. A silver mine. So this is a place where you can go and find riches. Find riches. You probably have noticed over the years that there's a significant difference of value between gold and silver. Today, gold is trading at upwards of $5,000 an ounce. Silver is somewhere around, I don't remember the latest quote was, somewhere around $100. 85? Is it more than that? Nonetheless, you notice the difference. Okay. So why doesn't he make it a gold mine instead of a silver mine? And the answer is because I think Bunyan probably, I can't prove this, of course, but I think Bunyan probably is thinking, okay, this is the common man's pursuit of wealth rather than the extraordinary pursuit of wealth. Because gold would be the kind of thing that the king has and the ordinary people don't. I mean, we live in a day when you can go down to the store and buy gold, okay? But in most centuries of human history, gold was specifically something that was associated with the uber wealthy or the uber powerful. But silver is treated as the common man's metal. It has value, significant value, but it's not as much as gold. So the idea is that this, by painting it as silver mine, it's like this is the temptation of wealth for the common man, not for the uncommon man. Okay? So I think that's why he paints it as a silver mine. Now, you might have some other reason, I don't know, but either way, the idea is this is a place where you could go dig in the ground and find some silver, which would be valuable, and you could make yourself wealthy with it. And then he says, which some of them that had formerly gone that way, because of the rarity of it, had turned aside to see. Okay, so the statement is, there have been people who have been walking this path, as Christian and hopeful are, going towards Christ. Okay, again, this is an allegory. Going towards Christ, walking the Christian walk, living the Christian life, and have discovered a silver mine. And having discovered it, they turn aside to see it. They go towards it. Okay, so they're allured by it, is the idea. Okay, so some who had formerly gone that way, so other pilgrims that had gone this way, had gone past this silver mine and had turned aside to see it. Now, here's what Bunyan will do. Here's the reality of this silver mine. Listen to the next words. But going too near the brink of the pit, the ground being deceitful under them, meaning the ground being such that it's unsure, right? You walk on it and it kind of gives in, okay? The ground being deceitful under them, broke, and they were slain. Some also had been maimed there and could not to their dying day be their own men again. They couldn't be themselves again. They had broken their legs, they had broken their arms, they had broken their backs, they had broken their necks. They were unable to continue to walk the path because they had gone into the silver mine. Now again, it's an allegory. What's the point? The point is that this is a place where money is the object, wealth is the object, and some walking the Christian path have wandered into that place and have fallen to their death, meaning they lost their Christian faith, or they have now been so maimed by their wealth that they're no longer able to be a Christian anymore. So both pictures are pictures of apostasy. Okay? See it? See the picture that's being painted here? So they're walking along. Okay. Now the obvious, I'm sorry, let me finish this. They're walking along and they discover the silver mine. It's a place of allure. It's a place of attraction. It appeals to men's fancies. Silver is unique and rare and interesting. It has the possibility of wealth. And so, you know what? I'm going to get me some. I'm going to get me some. And Bunyan is painting it as a picture of danger. Danger for us as those who are believers. Okay? And the obvious application is the pursuit of money can be a disaster. It has led men to fall away from the faith. So to then make his point crystal clear, he writes this. Then I saw in my dream, okay, again, here's the man recounting the story, all right? Remember, there's multiple people here. There's Bunyan writing the story about a man who's having a dream, who is seeing Christian and hopeful in the dream, all right? So here's the man having the dream. He's watching, he's observing. He says, I saw in my dream that a little off the road, over against the silver mine, at the entrance, there at the gate, stood a man by the name of Demas. All right, so what Bunyan does is paints him into the picture here. He takes this biblical character and writes him into this visualization that we have of this silver mine off the side of the road of sanctification. And he actually puts in parentheses, gentlemanlike. Okay? He's a gentleman. Now, my guess is what he means by that is Demas presents himself as someone that you would trust. Someone that you would go to and say, oh, I take your word. See, back in those days, we have nothing like that any longer in our society, but you could actually make a gentleman's agreement of something where you could go to somebody and have an agreement, shake hands on it, and your word was as good as a contract. Now, in most legal systems today, a verbal contract is still as effective as a paper one, but we're falling much harder times because they're much, much harder to enforce, right? But the idea that's being painted here is Demas is a character in this story who presents himself as someone you can trust. He'll come to you gentlemanlike. He's trustworthy. You can take my word for it. You can believe me, okay? That's how he's being painted. He's being painted as such a people. And he's there, it says, to call passengers, okay, walkers, to come and see, to come to the silver mine and take a look. Come and look at what we have here. So not only is the silver mine itself alluring, but there are people trying to convince you to go there and see it as well. Demas is being painted as one of these characters. So he says to Christian and his fellow, he says to Christian and hopeful, ho, turn aside hither, and I will show you a thing. Let me show you something. Let me show you something that you really want to see, that you really want to be involved with. Okay? So Bunyan has painted us a picture of something that is devilishly alluring. Devilishly alluring. It's something that appeals to men's natural instincts in the sense that it's something like silver that's rare, and having it makes one swell up with a certain amount of, whatever you want to call it. And not only that, but there's a man standing here who is saying to you, hey, come and take a look. You can have some. And I'm a trustworthy fellow. I will help you to get some of this silver so that you can have it for yourself. The temptations of the devil aren't just in the allure of things. The temptations are often fed to us through others who may or may not have the appropriate motives. In this case, not. We want to help you, right? Ronald Reagan used to say that most dangerous words in the English language is, hi, we're from the federal government, we're here to help. Well, this is the same kind of thing. We want to help. I want to help you. And Demas is trying to present this, and Bunyan's painting Demas, presenting this as, this is just a little off the way and just a little thing that you can do and you can have this. It's no big deal. Well, Bunyan believes it's a big deal. So here's how he has Christian respond to it. What thing is so deserving as to turn us out of the way to see it? What would be so valuable to us that we would want to turn from this path of going to Christ to going to see our Lord in the celestial city? What would be so alluring to us that would turn us away? I would suggest to you, my friends, that that's the question you ought to be asking all the time. What is it about whatever it is that has tapped you on the shoulder and says, come check it out? What is it that you're offering me that would be so alluring to make me turn away from focusing on Christ? That's the perfect question. It's easy for us to get allured to things, isn't it? Because we don't stop and ask that question. What is it that's so deserving as to turn me out of the way to see it? Demas's response is, here is a silver mine, and some digging in it for treasure. Here's a silver mine, and some digging in it for treasure. Okay, so there's others. Okay, notice the temptation. You won't be alone in digging here. See, there's already others that have come into this place. You see, and they're doing just fine. So come and join them. If you will come with a little pain, you may richly provide for yourself. So Demas allures by saying, look, it's not going to take a whole lot of effort for you to gain this thing that will be good. You will like it. You will love it. It will be good for you. It will only take a little. See, I really wonder what it is. We don't know, of course, right? So it's utterly speculative. But what is it exactly that made Demas abandon the Apostle Paul after he's released from his imprisonment to go chase the things of the world? Well, part of the answer that we can glean from Paul's words is that he was attracted more to the treasures of this world and the things of this world that delighted his eyes and his senses more than Christ. Paul's path was too hard to follow. The path of the saints to Christ is too hard. Because what I really want is the things of this world. If you will, Demas is being painted here as the archetypal version of the men that Christian and hopeful have just left behind. Okay? And Bunyan's not going to miss that point. You'll see it in a second. He's the archetype. He's the picture biblically of the one who starts with Christ, supposedly goes along with the faith, and then abandons it because something else becomes more alluring to him. Something more valuable comes to him. And so there's that question. What is it that you're offering me that's so alluring that it would turn me from Christ? Then said Hopeful, let's go see. Hopeful is painted, by the way, as the more naive of the two in this case, right? He's like, let's go see it. Let's go check it out. Christian's probably a little leery of that, especially if you rewind back to Vanity Fair, right? But Christian says, not I. Not I. Let us not stir a step, but still keep on our way. Let's continue on the path we're going. Let's not be lured by the allure of these things. And the devil is going to use many things to try to allure you to turn your eyes off Christ. Sometimes he's going to use negative things. He's going to use oppositions and persecutions and all kinds of temptations to sin and things like that. Negative. But sometimes he's going to use what appears to be good things to lure you away from Christ. Sometimes he's going to take innocuous things, things that you wouldn't even notice, and say, here, have a little of this, have a little of that. Money being the most obvious one, and that's why it's painted in the center here. The wealth of the world, getting things and prospering in this world. Does not the New Testament seem to over and over again, and particularly Jesus himself, over and over again, warn us about following after the things of this world? Or he states it more explicitly, I think, than anywhere else. You cannot love both God and mammon, wealth, prosperity. You can love one, but not the other. Either you're going to be mastered by one and love the other, or you're going to love the other and be mastered. But you're going to be mastered by one or the other. Christian understands that. Bunyan's painting Christian into this place of saying, I understand this. If we turn aside and go down into that silver mine to pull us out a few bits of silver in order to gain some wealth and then think we're going to get back on this path and walk to Christ, you're mistaken. Because he knows that there have been many who have gone off that path and have never returned. They have apostatized because they have chased the things of this world. This is the, can I say that this has been one of the biggest problems with humanity from the beginning? The struggle with physical possessions and their distracting us from the things of God. You think about Solomon, right? Supposedly the richest man that ever walked the planet. What was his life like at the end? What was his relationship to God at the end? Particularly as it's seen in his son who takes over for him. Not very good at all. He was wealthy, but it didn't bring him righteousness. And we are being told every day in this culture that money is, possessions are the most important thing. Grab for all the gusto you can, because tomorrow you may be gone. So Christian is giving to us here a very simple principle. Don't let the things of this world distract you from Christ. Keep your eyes fixed on him, and don't be allured by the things of this world, the phony things of this world. And he continues, I will warrant you. So now he makes an observation. He says, I will warrant you. We would probably say that today. I'll bet you, okay? I will warrant you when Bians comes up, if he hath the same invitation as we, he will turn in thither to see. Indeed, there is no doubt thereof, for his principles lead him that way. And 100-1, but he dies there. So what Christian does is says, think about what we just did in terms of Mr. Bians and Mr. Hold the World and the rest of them. We debated with them over the reality of the things of this world in relationship to religion. See, they thought that you could use religion to get ahead in the world. We recognize that's preposterous biblically. We recognize, no, the world is not the thing we're pursuing. We're pursuing after the things of Christ. Bians and his friends are pursuing the things of this world. So what he's saying to Christian, to hopeful in a sense is, listen, do you not get the principle of what we've just dealt with? We have had an opportunity to think through these issues before we got here. Now that we're here, let's not fall into the trap. The fact of the matter is, when he gets here, he will fall into the trap. And it will be the proof that we were right. He believes that possessing all the things of this world is commiserate with being a religious person. Christian says those two things don't go together. Here's the proof of it. Mr. Bians and his friends show up. They will turn aside to the silver mine. In fact, he says, I'll give you 100-1. And 100 to 1 that he dies there. 100 to 1 that he goes off the path even to the point that it kills him. He pursues this wealth even to his death. Remember, it said earlier that there are people who went there and the ground gave out from under them and they died. Well, Christian is saying he's going to go there. I think it's also a way of saying, hopeful, we're going to die there if we go there. Okay, so let's not go there, right? Now, you'll notice that Bunyan is not, in a sense, Bunyan's not really mincing words here, is he? He's being clear. Wealth and Christianity do not necessarily go together. Now, there are some who can be wealthy and can keep their eyes fixed on Christ. But even Jesus himself pointed out it's harder for a rich man to enter the kingdom than it is to stuff a camel through the eye of a needle, right? Now, that's an analogy. It's an allegory. It's humorous, but it's designed to make a point. And what's the point? You're going to be allured by something. Either you're allured by Christ or you're allured by the things of this world. Those are the two choices. Either you love Christ or you love the things of this world. So Bunyan has put now before us this great picture of a common ailment of those who walk the Christian life. Money, possessions, and the power and prestige that goes along with them. These things are alluring, and the devil uses them. And those who follow him will apostatize. So now, Bunyan finishes this. Now, Bunyan has been painting Mr. By-ends for 4 sections of this, okay? Mr. By-ends apparently was uppermost in Bunyan's mind. Of all the characters of this book, By-ends is the guy that sort of lives in Bunyan's mind, okay? Because you've seen him now, here he is again, in the 4th section. So Bunyan writes this. By this time, then, as they're stopped and talking about this, Mr. By-ends and his companions were come again within sight, and they, at the first beck, the first invitation, the first call from Demas, went over to him. Christian was proved right, wasn't he? Christian was proved right. Because he knew the character of the men. He knew the character. He knew that they were not in love with Christ. He knew that they were not pursuing after Jesus. They were pursuing after their own ends, their own goals, their own priorities, their own purposes. To come to Christ is to lay down all of your own goals and purposes and plans and follow him. It's that simple. It's that hard, but it's that simple. Christ tells us, listen, you want to be my disciple? You got to take up a cross. And how often do you have to do that? Daily. And you got to follow me. You have to take up an instrument of death. You have to take up a device that has only one purpose, and that's to kill you. It's somewhat ironical that the Romans made their victims carry their crosses because it's a way of testifying. I am walking with a device that's going to kill me, and I'm carrying it out to a place where they're going to hang me on it. But, as the old saying goes, death focuses the mind, doesn't it? You take up a cross to follow after Christ, it focuses your mind on him. You're carrying a cross, and there's only one outcome. And the outcome is that you are sacrificing everything to him. You're sacrificing your whole life to him. You're not carrying a bag of woes and troubles on your back that you have to try to get off, as most preachers today would have you to believe, right? You just got troubles in your life. And so your cross is just all those things that you got to bear and carry. And hopefully if you spend a lot of time listening to me as the preacher and how wonderful I am as I preach, I'll help you to deliver those burdens off your back and give you the freedom to be able to walk with ease. But that's not what the cross is. Now, that's what we've been led to believe it is in too many Baptist churches in our day, but that's not what it is. No, the cross is an instrument of death. It's an instrument of absolute self-sacrifice. It's an instrument of, I have died to this world and now belong to him. And therefore, the path I walk is a path of utter obedience and submission to him until I reach the day when I see him face to face. It's a walk of absolute holiness and commitment to him. Now, I realize I fall off the path a lot, but it is a myopic focus on Christ. See, if we preach a gospel that tells people anything other than that as to what it means to be a Christian, we've sold them a bill of goods. We've given a bait and switch. Way too much of the pulpit today is a bait and switch. Come to Jesus, your life's going to be wonderful. Bunyan says, come to Jesus, you'll have brief times in the plane of ease, but the rest of your time is going to be fighting against the allures of this world. You want to follow Christ? Great. Take up the cross and get on the path of holiness and fight the temptations and the allures of this world such that Christ is your only focus, your absolute myopic focus. So these men went off the path. Why? Because Christ wasn't their focus. Their focus was on themselves. And so they pursued after the first thing that came up that would give them something for themselves. Now, the writer, the dreamer in the story says these words. Now, whether they fell into the pit by looking over the brink thereof, or whether they went down to dig, or whether they were smothered in the bottom by the damps that commonly arise, of these things I'm not certain. I don't know what happened to them. I don't know what happened to them when they wandered off the path. As the dreamer is dreaming and watching Christian and hopeful, he sees Mr. Byans and his friends wander off to the silver mine. He says, I don't know what happened to him. I don't know what happened to him. But this I observed, that they were never seen again in the way. Mr. Byans and his friends are gone. They're done. Christian and hopeful have been vindicated in that. In the sense of we have stuck to our guns. We have stayed fixed on on our goal, which is Christ. We're going to walk this path. We're not going to turn away to the side. We're going to turn neither to the left or to the right. We're going to stay fixed on this path. These men did exactly what their character demanded. Demas probably wandered away because he was allured by wealth or something else. He fell in love with the things of this world rather than of Christ. Luke stayed with Paul. Luke stayed with Paul. So here's the warning. Watch out. Watch out for the allure of money. Gold may be on the rise, but be careful. Because if its allure is greater than the allure of Christ, you may find yourself off the path. Then sang Christian. We don't have any music for this. There's no music provided. So I'm going to make some up. No, I'm not. And all the people said, there you go. So here's a little poem that Christian sings here. Byans and silver Demas doth agree. One calls, the other runs, that he may be a sharer in his lucre. So these two take up in this world and no farther go. It's a short little ditty, almost like not a haiku. What am I looking at? Just a short little poem. There's a short little ditty. That's the word I'm looking for. Just a little ditty. You could put it to music, right? Byans and silver Demas doth agree, one calls, the other runs, that he may be a sharer in his lucre. So these two take up in this world and no farther go. Mr. Byans and Mr. Demas, which he renames Silver Demas here, as he's the guy that's promoting the silver mine, right? Mr. Silver Demas and Mr. Byans They have something in common. One calls, the other runs, but both of them are only interested in one thing, and that's the things of this world over against the things of Christ. Take up this world and no farther go. Or we might say it like this: they got their reward. They got their reward. They got what was coming to them. They went only as far as this world could take them. And so the unspeakable joy of the kingdom of God, which will not be based on material realities, is thrown away for the temporal things of this world, which do nothing but lead you to death in the first place. So it's a section that's basically saying, like so many of the others we've seen so far, here's something else that's going to come along in your Christian walk. And it's true of every generation. We're going to be allured by the things of this world. They're going to press upon us. And the question is, how are we going to respond to them? Those who truly know Christ will stay fixed upon the path that he has set for them to walk, and they will not be allured by the things of this world. They will understand them, deal with them appropriately. Money has killed many.